Welcome to Language Learning Insights. I'm Rick Moore, creator of Mivoca. Today I'm joined by Andrea Alger, co-founder and lead teacher at Spanishland School, and one of the most respected voices in online Spanish learning. Today we'll talk about language learning methods, common learner challenges, and practical advice for students. Andrea, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. And I hope that the things that we're going to talk about here today will help those learning a second language.
Well, thank you. I know they will. I'm personally very excited because, as you know, I've been following you and Nate for the whole 6 years of my Spanish
Yeah.
language learning journey. Starting by listening to your Españolistas podcasts, and I've listened to a number of them 3 or 4 times. So I'm pretty familiar with your journey, but
I I did
it's a
I
very
didn't
interesting one.
I didn't realize that you've listened to some of them so many times. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's something I recommend because when I started out, I was probably just getting from like A2 to B1, and I maybe understood 70 or 80%. And then I would listen again, maybe 6 months later, and then I would be up to maybe 80, 90%. And
Oh wow.
then once I got to 100%, some of them I would listen to again, but then speeding up because I know you and Nate deliberately go at a little bit slower than normal conversation pace for the benefit of
Mhm.
learners, but then I would try increasing the speed and see if I could understand you at like 1.2, 1.3. But besides that, I just really enjoyed listening to the content. That's one reason I've listened to it several times. And I know that your journey is covered in some of them. So, for the benefit of our listeners, it'd be great for you to share that because I know that you set out to be a teacher, but that your your plan probably changed quite a bit when you met Nate, and then things evolved into the creation of Spanishland.
Right. Yeah. So let me just tell you a little bit about our story. I am from Colombia, Bucaramanga, Colombia. So I went to college to be a Spanish and English teacher. So my plan was to be a teacher, and I was teaching English here in Colombia, and I wanted to move to the U.S. and teach Spanish in like a high school or eventually at a university. That was my plan. But towards the end, like when I was in seventh semester, like my last, not my last year, I had like a year and a half to graduate. I met Nate, who is my husband. He is from the US. And we met because I was practicing my English and he was practicing his Spanish on a website. So that's how we met. Then we fell in love. We ended up getting married. So I remember that before, like literally 6 months before we got married, he said, we need to start a podcast to help intermediate Spanish students because I haven't found anything out there. And I said, I think there's a lot of people doing that. I don't think we're going to be successful. And he said, no, we should try. And so that's when we started Españolistas. We launched Españolistas 10 years ago in October of 2016. Then we got married that year in December. And I say that Spanishland, which is our Spanish academy for intermediate and advanced Spanish students, I say that Spanishland was our first child because we got married and literally 2 months after we created a YouTube channel. And so he said, you are going to be a good teacher. Why don't we do this online? And I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure. But we created a YouTube channel, and then we created a Spanish course for the summer of that year, 2017. And we've been teaching Spanish to intermediate and advanced students ever since. We now have 2 podcasts, a YouTube channel, we have a website, of course, a newsletter, and we have a membership where students learn Spanish in a different way, because what we try to do is immerse the students in the language. So there's a lot of resources, a lot of tools that we provide. But yeah, this all is Spanishland exists thanks to the fact that we met online practicing the languages, and then Nate thought it would be a good idea for me to teach Spanish.
And why focus on intermediate or intermediate to advanced learners?
because at the time there wasn't much for that level. There were a lot of schools that were focusing on beginners, but Nate, my husband, right, that at the time was like low intermediate, he realized there's nothing out there for me that helps me to move forward in my process.
And I'm sure you learned quite a bit having Nate as a partner and as a student about the challenges of the intermediate level. What's particularly challenging during those intermediate learning years?
Well, what we noticed for Nate was he would say, I understand a lot, but I can't speak. Or when I try to speak, like I just go blank, the words don't come. And there's a lot of things I know, but when I speak, I make the same mistakes. So, yes, it's true what you're saying. I learned a lot as a teacher from Nate as my student. Because that's what we do in the Españolistas podcast, right? He is a student, I'm the teacher, and we have conversations where I teach him and correct his mistakes. So the main thing that I saw was he wasn't speaking enough. Even though we were married, we were using a lot of English at the time. And
Mhm.
then I realized we need to switch to Spanish and we need to come to Colombia more. Because even though he was reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of podcasts, he was getting a lot of input, but he wasn't really speaking much. When he started doing that more and intentionally being more immersed in the language, we noticed a big change.
And that certainly makes a huge difference when you have the chance to be immersed in it and to produce more output, do more
Hmm.
speaking, writing as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Um, what about grammar? How does that fit into it? I know you have some specific lessons on grammar, and that's a key area one needs to work on at the intermediate level. But I know that there are some teachers who will tell you at the outset you need to have an understanding of the structure of the grammar, and others who say, well, you can just kind of learn that by osmosis, just by consuming content and having conversations. You don't need to really study the rules because it will just over time, it'll come to you naturally. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's a balance, right? I think it's a perfect combination of the two. I know students that learned like just by being immersed in the language and they speak really well and they understand everything. But I noticed that there's a lot of structures that even though they have a good pronunciation, even though they can, say what they are thinking, some things don't sound completely right. And I noticed maybe there are some things in terms of grammar that they never studied that they don't understand, so that's why they keep making these mistakes. So it is possible to just learn by being immersed, by being in a country and listening to people. That definitely works. But I think if you can study the grammar, if you can invest time sitting down and focusing and studying some things, why not, right? So I think it's a combination of the two. What I don't think works at all is just studying and listening and studying a bunch of rules and never speaking, which I think it's a big mistake that a lot of people make, that they think the more I study, if I study more grammar, if I listen to more podcasts, then I will be able to speak perfectly. And that's not true. You need to start speaking from day one. So I think it's a combination of the two, definitely. Like you got to be studying as you listen, as you speak, right? Even if you speak with mistakes. But something that I'll say that I think is key that has helped our students is to intentionally have at least an hour of conversation with either a friend or a tutor, someone that can correct your mistakes in real time as you speak. Because a lot of people, I've noticed this too, a lot of students say, okay, my husband is Mexican, my in laws are Mexican, I talk to them. But then you see they keep making all these mistakes. Why? Because even though they are speaking, nobody is saying, hey, this is not how you say that. So
Mhm,
yeah, it's a combination of the two.
mhm. At the intermediate level, which seems particularly long, how do you help your students, your audience, kind of get beyond that feeling of frustration? I know that many of us feel because it seems you make a lot of progress in the beginner levels, and then you're able to have a basic conversation, get excited, and then it just seems like the progress is really slow for years.
Right.
Um, how do you help learners kind of push through? Find that motivation, find the right habits. How does one kind of deal with that potential frustration of spending years getting like through B1 and B2?
Right. So I think once you get to that intermediate level, you really need to push yourself, like intentionally push yourself. I say this to our students a lot. I say, if you understand 90% of what we say in our podcast, then that means that it's time for you to listen to more advanced podcasts. I think one of the problems for students is they kind of get to a point where they feel comfortable, and without realizing it, they are not getting out of their comfort zone because they listen to the same podcast, they watch the same kind of shows. And something else that I think is key that is holding them from moving forward is that they don't try to have like experiences where they are totally immersed in the language. And this is something that we invite the students to do a lot, is if they can, to go to a Spanish speaking country. We actually have different programs where we help the students to come to Colombia and be here for a week or two and be immersed in the language. So I think three things that are key. Number one, students need to start listening to podcasts created for uh, Spanish speaking people. So not just podcasts for Spanish students, but like podcasts where people are speaking at a normal pace, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's number one. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, but I don't understand everything. Well, that's the point, that you need to listen and listen to finally
Hmm.
understand. Um, Number two, students need to be more intentional about having conversations where they use more complex vocabulary. If you're talking about the same things all the time, you're not going to progress. And this is why we say you need to have at least an hour of conversation with a tutor, and we advise our students to make a list. I mean, our tutors provide that for them, like a list of topics. And then they'll say, okay, I feel comfortable talking about these things. Okay, this I've never talked about, my childhood, for example. Okay, let's
Hmm.
talk about that because you're going to use imperfect, right? So things like that, where they intentionally try to discover what are the topics that I feel comfortable, uh, you know, speaking in Spanish. Let's talk about those other things that I almost never discuss. And then number three, go to a country where you can be 100% immersed in the language.
Right. And that certainly is ideal if one can do that. I benefit from that. I mean, luckily with my work, I'm able to choose where I live, and I've chosen to
Right.
spend about half the year in Colombia, which I really enjoy. I've been doing that for almost 5 years now,
Yeah.
and I know it makes a huge difference. But it'd be great to hear from your perspective. Like, what are the key benefits of being able to travel to or live in a country where you're immersed in the language?
hmm Well, number one, you are forced to use the language, right? Because like if you are in the US, for example, and you go to Miami and you try to use your Spanish, but they don't understand, then you immediately switch to English. So when you come, for example, to Colombia, we don't have a lot of people that speak English here. So when you put yourself out there, you have to find the words. It definitely pushes you and pushes your brain to try and find other words. And it also helps you to see what is the vocabulary that you don't know or that you think you know, and at the moment of speaking you realize you didn't know all those words. So I think using the language in real situations in a country where everybody speaks Spanish is going to allow you to be more confident, At the beginning, it's gonna be hard, obviously, but then, and this is what our students say when they come here for a week or two. They always say, okay, at the beginning, I felt overwhelmed. I didn't understand everything they were saying, but day three, I felt like something clicked and I could understand more. And then I was more aware of maybe vocabulary that I didn't know. So then I went back home and I made a note. Okay, I need to work on vocabulary about money. What are the words? What are the things you say when you're going to buy something? Because that
Mhm.
sounds like something simple that you learned at the beginning, right? Like you would say, okay, an intermediate student knows all the vocabulary if they go to a store to buy something. But when students come here and try to have that interaction, they realize, oh, there's more to learn. So I think that's definitely key and helps a lot.
I wholeheartedly agree. Certainly, you learn a lot more and a lot faster when you have that experience. And of course, I chose Colombia. I was thinking about Colombia before I started listening to you and Nate on
Mhm.
Españolistas. But your talking about life in Colombia and all the things to do here were a big reinforcement in terms of my decision to move here to live here for at least a few months every year. And so it'd be great for you to share a bit about what makes Colombia unique or special in terms of a place to be immersed in Latin American Spanish.
Okay, great. So I think three main things. Number one, people here are very welcoming, and when they see that someone is learning their language, it's they feel like, oh, like they want to learn my language, so they immediately want to like talk to that person. They want to help. They're willing to listen. They We do this with the students. Like we go outside and then they talk to everybody, and people are not like, oh, I'm busy, I'm like doing my thing here, don't talk to me. So I see that people are very welcoming, and the students can talk to like random people, which is really the main thing in most Latin America. You'll find that, people are very, how do you say, um friendly.
Mhm,
That's one thing. Number two, our weather is great. It's like spring or summer all year long. We don't have
mhm,
cold winters. I know a lot of people like that. Um, and number three, our, I guess you could say, our accent is more neutral. I've found that a lot of people say that they find Colombians and Mexicans very easy to understand, and I
mm,
think it's true. And it's not everywhere in Colombia, but it's more like in the interior of the country: Bogota, Medellin, Bucaramanga. So, not because I'm Colombian, but I definitely think we speak in a more clear way. So obviously, as Cuba or Puerto Rico or
mm,
anywhere in the coast, people are gonna speak faster. They don't
mhm,
pronounce the S at the end, things like that. So I think in Colombia, we speak more clearly. So that helps a lot.
mm. And I'd love to hear maybe a story or two about some of your successful students, and then you've had many of them. But I imagine there are a few stories that stand out where you've heard back from a student who's talked about how your podcast, your lessons, your content in general has helped them to reach that next level.
Mhm. Okay. There's a student, she lives in New York. She used to be a college teacher and she loved Colombia and she wanted to be able to come every year and volunteer in an university in Bogota. So she has told me that, the methods that we offer have helped her a lot, but I know it's not just what we provide, but mainly the fact that she has been consistent and disciplined, because I think that's key to be consistent, to have a routine. She has been able to connect a lot of people in the US with people in Colombia and help students in colleges in Colombia. She comes every year and spends a month in Bogota doing voluntary work, helping students uh, come to the US to study there. And obviously, as you can imagine, that's very complex vocabulary. She does a lot of interpreting for students that want to apply for scholarships in the US. So obviously she has gotten to a very advanced level. So I think that's great because she has been able to help a lot of people. So that would be one case. Another one, there's another student that also comes to, I think it's Honduras or Nicaragua every year. He's a doctor. So he brings people from the US to help communities there. And he's like the interpreter. So
Mhm.
I think it's great because they are not, it's not just a hobby, right? Because it mainly starts as a hobby for everybody. But I think
Mhm.
it's great when you can use that second language that you're learning to benefit others, to help people around you. So this other student has gotten to a really good level where he can make those connections and help those people in need.
Wow, thank you. Those are both very inspiring stories. You mentioned consistency. You've mentioned that a few times, and I know one of the things you recommend for intermediate learners is consuming more content, especially podcasts, and looking for more conversations between native speakers or a variety of types of conversations and content. Besides listening to podcasts, what other habits would you recommend? I know that you recommend spending time every day if you can, but if one has like a half an hour every day, what are the most important habits you think one should have at the intermediate level?
Okay, well, actually, we did a podcast about this, like talking about a simple routine that you can have that I think most people will be able to apply. So when you wake up in the morning, you need to decide, am I gonna do something for 5 minutes as soon as I wake up, or right before breakfast, or right after breakfast, right? So one thing you could do is write a phrase, just write down a phrase, something that you're going to do today, like something important that you're going to do or something that you want to accomplish. Do that, before 9 a.m. So that will be an interaction with the language, right? That you wrote down, okay, this is something I want to get done today. Then, while you're driving to work or while you're walking your dog or, going to the gym, listen to an episode in Spanish of a podcast, either a podcast for Spanish students or just a podcast that is meant for people that speak Spanish about a topic that interests you. So, if you're a low intermediate, definitely listen to a podcast where they are teaching you, like Españolistas or any other podcast. But if you are an upper intermediate or advanced student, you need to think, okay, what are the things that I like? I like learning about history, or I like learning about, I don't know, I like working out. So I want to hear people giving me advice on that. Or find a topic that you like and then find a podcast about that and listen to that for at least 20 minutes. You don't need extra time for this because you can do it while you're driving, while you're doing something else. So that's like the second thing. Then after lunch, take time to watch a mini lesson about something. There's so many videos on YouTube right after lunch or while you're having lunch. You could watch a 10-15 minute video where they are teaching you, like, I don't know, 4 ways to say, how are you, to sound more natural, right?
Mhm.
And then at the end of the day, do something else also right before you go to bed or right before dinner. So this will be like four little things that you can
Mhm.
do throughout the day. And I know we all say we're busy, but a lot of times we're, kind of spending too much time on the phone and scrolling down. So instead of scrolling down, just spend 10 minutes watching something. At night, you could watch a 1 minute video on a Spanish account on Instagram, but
Mhm.
that is constant input that you're having. And then if you have more time, then be more intentional. Join a course, spend at least 2 hours on the week intentionally studying grammar, and for sure 1 hour at least per week talking to someone. Like it could be a tutor, it could be a friend. I think that is kind of like the model that we promote. That's what we advise our students to do. And I think when a student is consistent like that, they definitely see a lot of progress.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I love how you break it down by habits that take a few minutes or 10 minutes. that you can do at different times of the day. So you don't feel like, oh, I have to have an hour to study Spanish. You
Right.
can find 5 or 10
Hmm.
minutes here and there. So I love
Hmm.
that concept. Thanks for sharing that. Um, in terms of like what makes a student really successful, is having those habits the most important thing, that consistency, or are there other factors that you've seen that really distinguish the most successful learners or those that progress the fastest?
Definitely two things. Number one, having a set routine, like I said, having a set times to do specific things. I think that's key. And I think that's the same for everything in life, right? If you want to get in shape, then there's certain things you got to do throughout the day. And the more consistent you are, the more progress you will see. So, number one, having a routine and trying to follow it, being consistent with that. And number two, speaking more. I have noticed that the students that make the that that make the highest progress are the ones that are speaking more. We always say do at least an hour a week or two times where you speak for 30 minutes. But the ones that I see that speak even more, they progress faster.
Right. And very good advice. I need to do that more myself, but definitely speaking is the best way to improve at the intermediate level. And that really is the only way you can realize what's missing. You see where you're
Right.
making mistakes. You think you know all the vocabulary for, being in a certain situation. Then you're actually in that situation. You realize, oh, I don't know the word for this, and
Exactly.
so that's where it really comes through, like where you need to do more studying, have more practice. So it's essential, I think, for being able to
Hmm.
identify the areas you need to shore up or learn more about in order to make progress. Um, I kind of want to, before we wrap up, kind of circle back to your journey and ask you, because I know you've added a lot and maybe changed some things along the way. Sort
Mm,
of, it'd be great to hear what things that you've learned along the way that have caused you maybe to add new things or change course. As I'm sure over the experience of the past 10 years now, right? There have been some
yeah.
things that you've learned and changed. So maybe you could share a bit about that.
Yeah. I would say the main thing was that there was a point where we realized students need to be immersed. There's no point in me doing all these classes, giving them all these quizzes, all these grammar lessons, if they are not going to use it in real life. So something that changed was at the beginning, and we're still doing the YouTube channels, the podcast, the course online, everything. But at the beginning, we would focus a lot on the grammar, and then I realized, well, they need to experience the language in real life. So then in our platform, we added videos of like people traveling, like YouTubers, those YouTubers that do videos traveling around the world. So I started using videos like that or interviews, documentaries, so that our students would not only listen to me speak all the time, but that they could have a platform where they could have people from different countries, different accents, and they could listen to them and then do something with that information. So then we started putting videos of people from Chile, Spain, different countries, so that students could listen to them, follow the subtitles, and then do quizzes with that, learn expressions from there. So that's one thing that we added that people love. But then we realized, no, they have to come to South America and be immersed. And that's when we created the immersion program. So I think, like I said, it's a balance of everything. And not because you are now in the upper intermediate level, that means that you never have to go look back at the grammar, because it's always good to go back and review a few things to, you know, not forget those more complex structures. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I wanted to thank you for the second part you talked about, which is having a variety of different participants. Because I think that's one thing that certainly helped me a lot at the intermediate level is to hear different accents, different
Mhm.
perspectives. But while it's important to have a regular language partner or teacher, you get used to their way of speaking. and
Right,
every person is different. And I think really to feel successful in terms of achieving fluency and being able to communicate with a variety of people when you're in a country is having that exposure to people who have a different way of speaking or a different accent. And that's been tremendously useful to me. So I really appreciate you incorporating different guests. And also, it's just great to have a chance to learn more about the culture that way too, which I think is
right,
one of the things you accomplish is sharing Colombian culture. And that's something that one can certainly appreciate when you have participants from different walks of life, different parts of the country, and so on. So I know we're running short on time. Before we go, I really want you to share more about the different content you offer, and it's a ton. I know you have a whole team now producing it, but maybe just in a quick minute or two, tell us a bit more about what you offer to students and how they can find you.
Sure. So we are Spanishland School. We're everywhere in social media. So Instagram, Facebook, Google, just type Spanishland School and you'll find us. But what we do is help intermediate and advanced students keep moving forward in their journey with Spanish. And for that, we provide a lot of resources. Like you said, we have the podcast Españolistas, which is a podcast where I'm the teacher, my husband is the student. We have natural conversations, and I constantly correct his mistakes and teach using that. Then we have a YouTube channel where I do like 10, 15-minute videos teaching you tips to improve your Spanish, teaching you different things to sound more natural. So those are the kind of videos that I said you can watch like at noon or something. But we also offer the opportunity for students to come to Colombia and be here for a week or two with a family and live like a local, because that's what we want, that you experience the culture. You can be with a family, eat with them, spend time with them as you have classes in the morning, and then see the city in the afternoon. We also have tutors that where we offer one-on-one classes, so the tutors can talk to you, see what your needs are, and then create a plan for you. So that's mainly what we offer. And we just love doing this. I love meeting the students, talking to them on Zoom, listening to their success stories. So yeah, we're here to help you.
Well, thank you. You've certainly helped me a lot. So I want to thank you again personally for the huge help you've been in my journey. And also, in addition to endorsing the content you provide, I would certainly endorse having the experience of living here in Colombia whenever you can. So thank you again, Andrea. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. And thank you also for creating Mi Boca. I think that's a great resource. We have been recommending that for students. I think that is great that you created that, and it's going to help a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.